Welcome back to Mysteries Crime Stories, the channel where we dive into the darkest crimes, the strangest cases, and the mysteries that have haunted generations. Before we begin, take a moment to subscribe so you never miss these mysteries. Tell us in the comments what you think about the cases we cover, what you'd like to see in future videos, and share this story with anyone who would find it important. Now, let's begin. In the early 1990s, beneath the urban glow of Sydney, a quiet terror stalked the night. Women walking home, waiting at train stations, or hoping for work were ensnared in a trap built on deception, fear, and brutality. The offender became known only as the Night Stalker, also called the Moore Park Rapist. He was invisible to the public, unmasked to law enforcement for more than 30 years. This is his story. Shadows in the Park. The years were 1991 to 1993, a time before ubiquitous mobile phones, before DNA technology had matured into the powerful tool it is today. In those years, Sydney's Moore Park and its inner west suburbs became the settings of a crime spree, chilling in its consistency and its cruelty. Victims were approached near train stations. The promise was simple. A job, cleaning, modeling, something legitimate sounding enough to earn trust. Many were young, vulnerable, seeking opportunity in a city that didn't always offer much. One evening, a woman disembarks a train, sees a man who claims to be an employer. He shows her a badge. She follows, or is coerced, to Moore Park. There, the man produces a knife, forces compliance, and the nightmare unfolds. He would sometimes ask the women to pose for photos. Sometimes threaten silence. Don't make a sound. Sometimes attempt to comfort. I don't want to hurt you. But always the violence, the fear, the aftermath. As the assaults mounted, a pattern emerged. Many of the victims were of Asian background. The areas of approach, train stations, alleys, underlit streets, the lure of opportunity. The knife as object of control. And yet, for years, the identity of the man behind those crimes remained unknown. The police collected statements, sketches, descriptions. Task Force Park was formed, posters circulated. The media dubbed him the Night Stalker. But in that era, forensic tools were limited, and despite multiple reports, at least 10 reported assaults, no conviction was secured. The man slipped through the cracks. The man behind the mask, Glenn Gary Cameron. That is the man who would decades later be revealed as the Night Stalker. Born sometime before the 1970s, by the early 1990s, he was in his 20s, working nominally at a funeral parlor in Newtown. It was a cover among many parts of his life. He had once joined the Army, but was discharged after about a year for absconding and drug use. He drifted, he struggled, sometimes sleeping in his car, using substances, engaging in risky behaviors. Yet outwardly there was a semblance of normalcy. Over the years, Cameron married twice and had children. He worked, he moved, he built a life far from suspicion. To the world, he was just another man. To those who suffered his assaults, he was the Night Stalker. Faceless, terrifying. Crimes, modus operandi, and victims' experiences between April 1991 and May 1993, at least 8 women would later be confirmed victims. There may have been more reporting. Media accounts number at least 10 assaults. The women were aged between 17 and 45. Their only connection was being in the wrong place at the wrong time, being vulnerable to a man who preyed on desperation and trust. The perpetrator's modus operandi was chillingly consistent. He'd offer fake job opportunities, cleaning work, modeling, sometimes offer cash. He sometimes posed as a police officer, showing a badge to convince his mark to trust him. Approaches were often near train stations. He'd ask to see the woman's ticket, or something else to establish trust. Then he would lead her away, often to Moore Park or other secluded or park-adjacent areas. Knife used to threaten, often forced undress or to pose for photographs. Some of the assaults were prolonged. One woman was raped 5 times in half an hour. These acts left physical wounds and deeper psychological ones. Trust shattered, safety lost. For decades, the victims had to carry themselves in a world where the man who shattered their lives remained at large. The investigation that went cold. The original police response was serious. Task Force Park was set up. Statements were taken. Victim sketches were made. Posters circulated. The media reported. But the investigation stalled. In part, law enforcement of that time dealt with limitations. Forensic science was less advanced. The use of DNA was in its earlier phases. Databases were smaller. Techniques for familial searching, identifying relatives via shared DNA markers, were either unavailable or undeveloped. Witness memories faded, evidence degraded, leads dried. The Night Stalker grew colder in mystery. For decades, no arrests, no public closure. The perp walked free. Modern science, familial DNA, and the breakthrough. Enter 2022. More than 30 years after the crimes, the Necesitados Police's Sex Crime Squad and the Forensic Evidence and Technical Services Command launched a renewed initiative to review historic sexual assault cases using modern DNA and fingerprint technologies. This re-examination gave rise to Strike Force Gertab. In this review, at least 4 of the 8 confirmed victim cases were linked by the same male DNA profile. It meant that those assaults came from the same person. But identifying the person was another challenge. A key turn, a familial search, looking for relatives in DNA databases whose DNA profiles match partially, suggesting a relationship. The unknown perpetrator's DNA didn't directly match anyone in the criminal database, but it matched a relative, his daughter. This clue changed everything. From that relative, police were able to focus in further. They traced leads, figured out that a man named Glenn Gary Cameron could be that relative. Police surveilled, gathered intelligence. Then came the tactical move. In February 2024, when Cameron was flying into Sydney International Airport, authorities acted. They retrieved a beer glass and a fork used by him at the airport bar. These items yielded DNA that matched the profile. Confirmed. Arrest followed. Arrest, guilty pleas, and charges. On 29th of February 2024, under the auspices of Strike Force Gertab, Glenn Gary Cameron was arrested. He was about 60 to 61 years old at the time. He was not immediately tried. Suppression orders prevented the media from publishing some details. But public interest was growing. Victims' families were waiting. All those years, the unanswered questions. In a court hearing in September 2025, Cameron pleaded guilty to 13 key offenses related to 8 victims. Among those charges, 11 counts of aggravated sexual assault at knife point, 1 attempted aggravated sexual assault, and 1 count of indecent assault. Originally, he faced 36 charges. Some were withdrawn. Others will be taken into account at sentencing. Sentencing is set for October 2025. The impact on victims, society, and law enforcement for the victims, this is both a moment years in the making, and yet it cannot erase what was done. The scars, the fear, the silence that years of not knowing bring. Many have had to live with the weight of trauma. The questions: why me? Why did no one stop him sooner? Would it ever be me again? Society, too, felt the ripple effect. The media coverage, the sense that a predator walked freely in neighborhoods at night, the fear that any unassuming night walk might become a threat, and for communities of migrants or women of Asian descent, the added vulnerability of not being believed, of being isolated, of not having as much voice. For police and forensic science, this case stands as proof of the power of modern tools, and also a reminder of past limitations. DNA databases grow. Familiar search techniques become more refined. Historic cases once thought unsolvable are now being reopened. But the process is painstaking. Evidence can deteriorate, memories can fade, records can be lost. Ethical, legal, and social questions. The case raises difficult questions. Familial DNA searching, a powerful tool, the idea of identifying a suspect via a relative's DNA. But what of privacy concerns? What protections should exist? How much power should police have in accessing familial relationships? Statute of limitations and legal time limits. While in many jurisdictions sexual assault has no statute of limitations, evidence degrades, memories fade. Some witnesses may have passed away, some evidence lost. The law can only do so much. Media suppression orders. In this case, court orders prevented media from identifying the suspect or publishing certain details for a time. These orders are often used to protect integrity of investigations or the rights of victims or accused. But they can also lengthen public distrust, victims' voices, trauma, and support, decades of waiting for acknowledgement, the psychological burden, social stigma, the importance of counseling, legal support, and a justice system that believes survivors. The sentencing to come, a new chapter. In October 2025, Glenn Gary Cameron will face sentencing. The court will weigh the 13 counts to which he has pleaded guilty. The other charges may factor into the overall gravity of his crimes. There will be victim impact statements. There will be arguments from prosecution and defense. Will remorse be evident? Will justice feel adequate to those whose lives have been shattered? The legal system can impose punishment, restitution, supervision. But can it bring back a sense of safety? Can it help heal what has been broken? Reflection: the unseen toll. A man named the Night Stalker terrorized women. Decades passed. For years he remained anonymous. For years fear lingered. For years justice was delayed. But this case also stands as a testament to the tireless work of investigators who never stopped looking, to advances in DNA technology that made the invisible visible, to victims who held on, refused to be silenced. Perhaps the darkest part of this tale is not what he did, but what took so long. What could not have been done then that can be done now, and the hope that this case will embolden more re-examinations of cold cases, more use of forensic science, more belief in survivors.